Jonathan, it's good to see you, dude. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for, taking the time out of your day, 15, 20 minutes to even chat with me. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I saw in the little description of the scheduled meeting that you wanted to chat a little bit about like setting up SOPs, tracking data, managing data, that kind of stuff, and sounded like you were using like a Go high level based system. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's a go high level based system. I am using REI Sift
Yeah.
as a CRM. And I got your contact through Ella Ray. She's a great person. She's our TC for a lot of wholesale deals that we're doing. But yeah, she gave me your contact, and I'm like, man, I got to meet this guy. Seems really smart, and a lot of the things that I've been focused on, Kyle, is mostly acquisitions. I have
Mm.
a full W-2 job, so it's I work 12-hour shifts at a bottling company here in California. But on the side, I wholesale in Texas, so I'm in California. And I think one of the things I would do a lot of cold calling before my job became so took a lot of time. But then I hired a VA, and
Mm.
I've been hiring people from the Philippines. And I think one of the, I guess, hurdle or trouble that I'm having is us on Zooms. Like we go on Zooms, and I'm explaining to them what needs to be done, cold call, walk through the CRM. And I felt like, God, this is just taking so much of my time. I
Right.
don't have time when they have questions, I'm in between work. So the only thing I did, and I've done so far, is just make a Google Drive. I made a Google Drive of me on Zoom recording myself doing my thing that I normally do. Hey, I'm making calls in the dialer. This is what I'm doing. I'm creating tasks. I'm doing follow up. And then I just use ChatGPT like on Gemini or something very simple to create a document or a step by step. Right. And that's all I really
Mm.
did. And I'll hand them the drive and I say, hey, this is what you do. But I'm still kind of I'm reverting. I guess you can say the Google Drive is a little unorganized. And I think
Mm.
the thing is, I'm just trying to simplify a process. I'm just trying to simplify the onboarding process so that they can just come in and get
Mm.
to work and everything's kind of understood. And then aside from that, I don't have an integrator. So I'm doing the things that I should be in the CRM, but there's a lot of leaks in the CRM as far as like tracking the KPIs, managing the data and support, stuff like that, as far as like outbound calls, inbound calls, and stuff like that. So that's where I feel like I'm struggling a lot. And then I could take the time to really, okay, let's start from A and work our way all the way to Z. Um, but it really takes a lot of the time away from like acquisitions because I've only focused on acquisition, talking to people, talking to
Mm.
sellers, talking to agents, and that's kind of what I'm doing. And I just hired a VA just to help me for cold call, uh, solely
Mm.
for cold call. Yeah, and she works only 5 hours a day, is what
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So, so you got a couple things going on there. So you're recording your calls, putting them in like Google Drive, and then using ChatGPT to take those calls and turn them into like step by step.
Yeah, kind of like step by step, and it'll
Okay.
say, "Hey, come walk into it." So it's a little more simplified, but it is still where the like I'm hiring another VA. She's starting. The other girl didn't work out, so the new VA is going to start on the 6th, and I gave her the Google Drive, but she's still coming back and saying, which I understand. Of course, I'm going to add to it, and it's not going to be perfect in the beginning, but she's like, "Hey, I don't understand this." Or I don't understand that. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll make another video, not that I want to not jump on the call with her, um, but these are pretty much like basic questions that are not like needing a lot of my attention for us to jump on a Zoom. And then when I'm on
Mm.
graveyard shift, because I rotate on my shift, I can't always get to her as fast as I like to. So that's why
Mm.
I was trying to think of the Google Drive to begin with.
Yeah, I think that's a great first step. When I think about onboarding and stuff like that, um, that you have to make sure you do a really good job with your documentation, and also keeping that documentation up to date if things are changing. That's one of the hardest parts that people
Yeah.
run into. Um, do you have any kind of additional processes that you use, or is that what you described pretty much it at this point?
Yeah, that's pretty much the process that I use. That's usually so far that I do for the process, to really bring the cold caller into the system. I
Mm,
haven't, and then usually everything else as far as like the follow up and actually closing deals, I'll do all of that. I
gotcha.
haven't set that up yet, just because I feel like I haven't even got the base going. So I feel like I'm
Okay.
very new, or I'm very new to it, to that process. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And you said the questions that people are asking are really basic stuff. Like, is it stuff that you would have expected them to know if they had watched your videos, or
Um,
what do you mean by basic? And are there any like other similar, like, do you notice like a particular pattern of questions or anything like that?
Yeah, I think I guess the questions that I wouldn't have, like basic questions like, hey, I can't log into the server. It's asking me for a security code. I need the security code digit, and because it's tied to my email address, I get the email. I just didn't see it when they told me. So little things that I
Oh,
didn't think about that are pretty common. And then I'll say, oh, okay, yeah, here's the 4-digit code. I got it through my iCloud or my Gmail. Here you go. And then next, I'll add that to frequently asked questions. I add that to, like, once they have that problem, I'll say, oh, okay, well, here's a frequently asked questions that I'm going to attach to the Google Drive just in case that comes up again. This is how you would handle it. In other words, for like future reference. So that's kind of what I'm going through right now, trial and error. Or, hey, my server is glitching. My outbound calls, I'm not able to make calls. And then there's a
mm,
support team that's obviously not me, but like the REA SIF has their separate support team that they can maybe go in and ask questions. They just have to hit the link and say, hey, having issues, what can I do here? So they could troubleshoot, because that's all I would do at that point. Like if they told me they had a problem,
mm,
I wouldn't do anything. I would just go to their support and say, hey, we need help. In other words.
gotcha. Okay. Dude, it sounds like you're doing great stuff. I know you probably feel a little overwhelmed with it, but it sounds like you're taking some really fantastic steps already. So,
Yeah.
you know, one of the things you could do. So I love the fact that you're like adding FAQs and stuff like that as you run into problems. That's really great. Um, if you start to see a situation where somebody's asking similar questions that are in the FAQ,
Yeah.
um, maybe there's some room to like leverage tools like ChatGPT and hook it up to your FAQ doc that you wrote,
Mhm.
so they can just ask it questions.
Ask
Because
questions.
like
Okay.
the thing about this is a thing that I have observed with my background as a software engineer. We were always struggling with documentation. Like
Uh,
documentation is a huge part of the business, and there's a huge problem around how do you manage knowledge in your business,
yeah.
and how you manage that documentation and keep it up to date, and then how do you find what you need. And sometimes like you don't know how to ask the question right, and I could especially see this being an issue if somebody isn't like a natural English speaker, like
Yeah.
that's not their primary language. So um, if you were to leverage maybe some additional tools like ChatGPT, hook it up to your documents,
Okay.
and then let them ask questions, that might help with some of those things.
Hmm.
Um, the other thing I would say is um, you probably need to think about putting together an onboarding doc,
Hmm.
like maybe something that's a little bit more organized,
Yeah.
and pulling out just the key pieces of information that somebody would need right as they're getting onboarded. So like I would consider that a piece of your SOPs and your business. So you have that initial like onboarding where they are going through and they need to get familiar with all these things, and you might just have like these few primary things that you address in your onboarding doc, and that is like what they use to get started. And some of that includes some of the things you would need to do.
Okay.
Like, for example, you're going to start to probably see as you add more people to your team, a need to maybe get people their own accounts, right?
Yeah.
On REISIF, I think you said
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
So you might need to like get them their own account so that they're not pestering you for an access code.
Yeah. Exactly. Get them now.
But it's easy to overlook that, if
Yeah.
it's not in your onboarding doc. So if you got to go
Yeah.
through and hire a new person, or if somebody else on your team hires a person for you later, having that onboarding doc will tell everybody what needs to happen from getting that person set up and then from that person taking action onward.
Okay.
So I would consider that maybe.
Okay.
Take a quick look at that, and you could start with something as simple as like a checklist.
A checklist.
Honestly.
Okay.
And then you can evolve it over time to make it look prettier if you really need to, or the person you hire, you could hire somebody else to do this to make it look prettier and more understandable.
Yeah.
The good thing is like the person that's going to struggle with your documentation is actually sometimes the best person to help write your new documentation, because they know what questions they had and what are the pieces that they didn't understand. And so they can help add clarifying questions and answers and details where they
makes sense.
So I would also consider like maybe talking with them a little bit about, hey, like if you see something that you think is missing or confusing and we address it, like go in there and like add it, like add a little piece or add a comment here or there or something like that. Because in the long run, you want to make your systems easier for people to work with.
To understand. Yeah, that makes sense. And I didn't even think about that. To try to better understand it. And if you are seeing something, hey, tell me so I can fix it. I didn't even think of that. I'm more trying to understand.
Yeah, or you empower them to go fix it for you. So that way you don't have to be the one to fix it, because in the long run, it'll take like stuff off your shoulders. You don't have to worry about going and editing every little thing yourself.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I like that. I didn't even think about that.
And that's what we did. That's actually what we did in our engineering team. Like we would have new people come through, look through our onboarding process. We had things that we had to do to help the person in that document. We had things for them to do to go learn. And then we encouraged them very strongly, hey, if there's something confusing here, please make sure you add a comment or add some clarifying details or something, so that way we know how we can improve this for you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes.
So the only other thing I might say is, well, let me ask this as a question. Are you at the point where you are able to hire an integrator to help you? Or are you still at the stage of, I still gotta have to do some of this, some of these pieces myself until you can like get things rolling a little bit more smoothly, more regularly?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question, Kyle. When it comes to the integration, it's really hard for me to understand like where to start. In my mind, I have an idea of what's important. Like I know it's important. I just don't know how to like where to tackle it. And I had somebody that I had teamed up with in Sub 2 a couple years ago, and he has a full-time W-2, so he's very alike, just like me. He barely has time, and he was helping me manage the data. And then it's funny because we're still partners, but it's more of he doesn't have the time. But we're still partners today, so it's really understanding. Like in my mind, I thought, well, do I really need him? Because I don't, I haven't, I've reached out. Hey, we need to create a new user or hey, we're getting blocked a lot by 10DLC when we're sending text messages. How do we fix this? And I think that's what's really hurt the marketing channels that we're doing, because we're doing cold call, SMS, and email. Um, and the availability is just not there. So that's
Mm,
why I'm like, hey, I know I need it. Because it's like but I think I've leaned so much on assuming like, hey, he'll take care of it. And he does take care of it, but it's a very drawn out process. And what I mean by that is like
mm,
nothing to him. He's a great person, but he's just very busy. And then it's like, hey, we're getting blocked. When can we fix this? Okay, well, I'll look at it today, and then it'll get fixed in 2 weeks. But within that 2 week time frame, we've been getting blocked. So the
mm,
marketing slows down, and I feel like it kind of is a little bit of a hindrance. So that's why like I've never really worked with a real integrator, to be honest with you. So I don't know. I know they're very valuable. I hear Pace say it all the time, like, hey, you got to have your Cody, right? And he's the visionary,
mm,
right? But I know I have a system. I know it's strong. I know it can do a lot. It's just I don't think I'm managing it correctly.
mm.
I'm not tracking a lot. The only thing I have my cold caller do is I have her download a tally tracker, and she's clicking on the tally tracker every time she makes a phone call. And then at the end of her day, she's logging that on a KPI document. And that's really all we're doing to keep track of the key KPIs. And when we're not getting leads or we're not getting deals at a certain time, I don't know why we're not. I don't know if it's a data issue or if it's a connecting. So yeah, I guess in other words, yeah, that's where I'm kind of hurting on that end.
So you don't know. So when a lead doesn't go, you said when a lead doesn't go through, or sorry,
Yes.
can you repeat that one more time?
So like when she pushes a lead through, like let's say that she generated a lead, she talked to a person, she'll process the lead, she'll tag it correctly. It'll go into a certain bucket in the CRM where I can
Mm.
then call and follow up. But sometimes I think, when we're managing the data, she doesn't like, according to my Google Drive, she's not able to clearly understand the expectation of where that lead goes. Like she puts it in the right, she tags it correctly, but there's either some missing information for that lead or it's not the full complete lead. So I always end up going back to that lead,
So you're missing
complete
information.
missing information. Yeah. So it doesn't
Mm.
qualify it all the way. I'll go back and I'll fill in the blanks, in other words,
Okay.
to speed up the
Okay.
process. So I'll then I will call that lead. I still will, but then I'm going back, hey, this process isn't finished. I'll finish the process and then I'll call the lead, in other words. And I'm pretty much doing that on a lot of stuff that's coming in, coming into the process or lead flow, I'd
Okay.
say.
Got it. So that sounds to me like there's a training issue.
Yeah.
So the best way, so this is going to be similar to the onboarding doc.
Okay.
Um, you need to write an SOP that can start as a checklist. You need to write an SOP that is going to very clearly specify the step by step instructions that they should follow to make sure that they don't miss anything.
Okay.
And they're gonna, they're gonna really lean heavily. And this is true with any type of employee, right? Like when you are going through, you're learning something brand new. Um, even if you've done a similar thing in the past, every business is a little different and maybe how they want you to do a certain thing, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to have to lean heavily on that checklist when they're getting started. And as they go over time and do it over and over again, they're going to get to the point where maybe they don't have to lean as heavily on it, but it's still helpful to have because sometimes people make mistakes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
if somebody makes a mistake, you can say, hey, like, I noticed this thing was missing. Can you go back and refer back to the checklist again and make sure, like, for the next one, that we're not missing this information?
Yeah.
And you just keep pointing people back to the checklist over and over again. So that way you don't have to be the one to fill in all the details yourself.
Okay.
The way I've got a video and I can share this with you after we get off our call, but I've got a video that I put out on how to write an SOP, and it's just a really simple way to think about it.
Was it on your
Um,
YouTube? I didn't mean to
yes,
cut you
yeah.
off. Okay, cool. I saved it too. I went
Oh,
and
good.
subscribed to your channel because I'm like, I see something on there. So I liked it, so I can save it. I just haven't looked at it. So I hope
Okay.
that's the same one.
That is, and
Okay.
what you'll see in there is there's like two methods I talk about. There's like a checklist method and a flowchart method to describe your SOPs. And usually, I say to people like when you're just getting started, to start with the checklist because it's the easiest thing to write. It's really fast. When you're going through your checklist, you write it like what happens, and then what happens, and then what happens, and you're just like you boom, boom, boom. And then under each of those, you might need more details. So you say, well, what happens and how does it happen? So you give more
Okay.
details and you do the next one, you do the next one. But each of those hows are technically a what. Like, so it's what happens, how does it happen? Oh, that thing happens. So how does that thing happen? Right. And so you can get a couple levels deep on it.
Wow.
Um, but that's the best way to start
Okay.
is just to start with a checklist and you'll get deep at some point with it. And you might later say, I need to break this thing out into a separate document or file or something like that and link to it.
Mhm.
So that way it's easy for you to go back and forth between the stuff. But that's how I would start. So, like, particularly with the flow of this, what this person is doing when they get a lead, I'd say, what is the process or checklist of things that need to happen when they get a lead?
Okay.
And what pieces of information do they need to make sure is there? You may even attach a video to it if you want to take that extra step.
Yeah.
So you could add a little link in there from the checklist to your video.
Mhm.
So that's a nice thing about Google Drive is that you could just literally link to your video that's in Google Drive, which is great. You've already started building up those
Yeah.
pieces.
Mhm.
So that's really fantastic. So that would be the next thing I would suggest for you is get
Okay.
that next one
Okay.
for specifically for the pieces where you're feeling the most pain in your
Okay.
business
Okay.
and wherever you're getting the most time sucked out of your day trying to correct mistakes.
Yeah.
Like I would start there.
Okay. Okay. I'll definitely do that, Kyle. I really appreciate that. And I made some notes, as you were talking, because that's, I'm definitely going to go back and refer to that video on your YouTube as well. And then just the last question, because I know we're going over this 20 minutes here. What do you suggest or what do you think I should do as far as like the managing of the KPIs and the tracking and the managing of the data and everything like that? Because I was thinking of hiring someone in the Philippines, but I've gone on Upwork, Fiverr, and stuff like that, and that's usually where I get my cold callers.
Mm.
So I don't know what would be the step to try to fill that void or gap in the business that I'm kind of for the integration side. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say with any kind of metrics, you need to don't track a metric for the sake of tracking a metric. Make
Mhm.
sure it's actually providing you some clear value.
Okay.
So you can always add a metric, right? Like
Yeah, of course.
you can always add more data and all that stuff. If so is it like the collection of the data that you're having the trouble with and that like collecting it and making it like putting it into one place where you can see it quickly? Is that the issue or is there something else there?
I think it's kind of understanding the data. It's so
Oh,
like,
okay.
yeah, we're pulling a lot. Like I'm pulling data from the county. We're marketing to that data in the
Mm-hmm.
CRM, and we're generating some leads through that data. But then there's a lot of data that um, we're not touching because either we're not reaching these people or we haven't touched them. Nobody's picked up. So what I'm doing is that data is kind of just sitting there, and then we're pulling more data and it's getting stacked. And so like I guess just managing
Oh,
the data, we're like, okay, so who I don't know who we talked to in December or who we didn't talk to. So it's like kind of understanding the data and making the best use of the data. Or whenever we're getting blocked through an SMS, because we're saying words that are blocking us, I'm going back and then I'm reaching out to support and I'm saying, hey, we got to create new users. We got to do this. Or, the VA says, hey, I submitted 7 leads this week. But I just don't know where to find it. Like I don't have a system to where it's like we see all the leads that she's producing. Like we see her creating the task and she's making a tag. So if I went through the filter in the system, I could visually see it. But I would then have to go into the system, create the tags, put the filter on, and then visually see, okay, yeah, we do have 7 leads.
okay. I think I see the problem here. Okay. So
Yeah,
you need a pipeline. You
yeah,
need a
yeah,
you need a pipeline that's set up that visually tracks your leads. So when you when your VA does something with a lead, and they move that they let's say they take the initial information from that lead for the property,
yeah,
um, then that lead should go visually from one stage in the pipeline to the next stage, from information like something like information needed to information collected.
yes,
And they should be visually moving it through so that way when you go to your system, you can see where exactly they were.
yeah,
Um, and then ideally your system should be set up to like track the number of leads that are in that particular stage,
mhm,
within some period of time.
yes,
So let's say like the last 30 days, this many leads were in this stage, you
yeah,
know, or this many leads are in this stage or whatever. So that's how I would look at that.
okay, okay.
If you guys, and I'm assuming from the way you described it, you don't already have a pipeline. Is that correct?
No, 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 no pipeline. It's
Okay.
just a CRM that we're able to kind of collect the data. Hey, not interested, interested, and we're tagging them appropriately
Okay.
based on the response. But like, say for example, if we get a deal in Texas, right? We pull 500 records and we get a deal, right? We close on the deal, we wholesale it.
Mm.
We don't know, like we know how we got it, right? We pulled the data, but we don't know the metric to follow to stay consistently to close a deal per month. But if we understood, hey, how much data do we realistically need and how many people do we need to talk to? And this is the average of what we're doing as a deal flow. We just know we're getting I know I'm getting a deal. I just don't know how or like
Mm.
how to, kind of grade it
Got it.
on what needs. So I keep doing the same thing. Hey, pull data, pull data, pull data, do the same thing, but not, knowing how we got there, in other words, if that makes sense.
Okay. Gotcha. And I'm pulling up REISIF so I can get a refresher on this. Okay. This doesn't look like it's a Go high level based system. This looks like something different. So I'm not 100% familiar with this platform and if they have like pipelines that you can set up.
Mhm.
If they don't, you need some. It might not be called a pipeline
Okay.
in that system. It could be called. I wonder if I can find it if I go under pricing. I wonder if I look at pipeline. Maybe I call it Kanban. No.
I know they do have something like a Kanban board on there though too.
Okay.
Yeah, because I have REI reply too. I've had it in the past, and I know it's like a white label of Gohila.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I know they have something similar to that, but it's a little different. They
Okay.
do have the Kanban board feature. Yeah, we
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So you want to start making use of that.
Okay.
Typically a good CRM system is going to have like some kind of like Kanban board or something like that you can move people through certain stages, like, or you can move an opportunity through through stages. So
Okay.
that there, I'm distinguishing between the two because
Yeah.
there are contacts and then there's an opportunity, and you might have a contact that brings you 10, 15, 20 opportunities in the future. You don't know, right? Like, so
Yeah.
you want to make sure those concepts are separate, and then that opportunity should be able to move through the pipeline in the different stages.
Okay.
And when it does that, the CRM should be keeping up with that data, so that way then you can turn around and create a visualization for it or a
Okay.
metric for it. So
Okay.
that would be your next step one that I would
Okay.
do, is start implementing your pipeline, Kanban board, whatever you want to call it,
Okay.
with your stages, and include that as a part of your processes. So you will have to document that in those SOPs we talked about before.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense.
And that'll make it so much easier for you, man. Like, even if you had to manually go through and calculate, like, you could at least like do it, you could visually see it.
Yeah.
And there's probably going to be like a summary of the numbers and stuff. So you can hopefully quickly move through that stuff, and it's very clear to everybody where you're at, instead of having to like go through a table and then filter on the status.
Yeah.
Like,
That's pretty much what I'm doing. She's kind of telling me at the end of the week, hey, this is what I got, and that's what I'm kind of going off of what she's saying.
gotcha. And I'm going to take another quick look here at REI SIFs. Let's see if they've got like do they have metrics? I'm not seeing anything.
Yeah, I don't think they do.
Okay. So this might be a thing that you train if they don't have any like built-in ability for you to create like a dashboard with metrics or anything like that. You may actually need to either yourself or have your VA do it, or hire another VA to do this. Actually, like, collect the data and put it together in even just a Google spreadsheet, honestly. Like, and you use that for your metrics to get started, and you use that to then make decisions like based on that data. So like, depends on how much you trust the VA. You need somebody you trust to give you accurate numbers, because you're going to be basing your decisions on those numbers.
Okay.
So whoever does it, somebody needs to collect the data. Somebody needs to put those numbers together in a unified place.
Okay.
Even if it's a Google spreadsheet, so that way over time you can start to see those numbers change, and then you can make decisions based on those numbers.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Kyle. I appreciate your time, and thank you so much for, taking the call. And I know we went over the 20 minutes, so I apologize.
That's okay.
I appreciate the help.
Yeah, no problem, man. You didn't have anybody lined up after you, so I was happy to stay on a few extra minutes for you. Feel free to use that link again that you booked this call with if you need some additional follow-up help, because I know you're going to take this back and you're going to have to implement some stuff.
Yeah.
And you'll probably have more questions.
Yeah. No, I appreciate all your help, man. And where could I find information for you and your team? Because I know I was kind of reading a little bit about your background. I know you're very smart with systems and processes and everything. But how do I know if I need to bring you guys into my team to like help us? Do you guys do that, or do you guys I guess I don't know where to start. Like let's say that because I know I'm still having issues with my back of the systems, but how do I kind of fill you guys in to make you guys part of my world, in other words?
Yeah, so it depends partly on where you're at. So I have right now, what I offer to people is a couple different solutions. One is if you're just getting started and you need help, or even if you're not getting started, let's say you're getting started with the SOPs specifically, you need somebody to come in, help you write the SOPs, help you to organize things so that way your team can get trained on those SOPs, stuff like that. Like, I can help you with that stuff, and I do that on an hourly like consulting basis. So because partly just because like it'll take some time for me to work through your specific business. I gotta like figure out what are the ins and outs of the things you do, how you do them, and then we have to like actually write them out. So that is for people who really struggle to write their own SOPs and they need some help getting that documented in an organized way. Beyond that, if you have like particular types of work that you need done, like you need systems set up, you need automation set up, you need AI integrations, stuff like that, what I do is offer a project-based fee to do those for you. And what we can do is we can say, given all these things you want done, we'll break these down into like milestones, and you'll pay a flat fee for each milestone we complete. So that way it's on me to figure out how long it's going to take. It's not on you because you're not the tech guy. You shouldn't have to figure that out.
Yeah.
And then what I usually do is I start with the SOPs. So like the way, unless you kind of already know what you want, like some people really know what they want and they say, I want this thing and go do this for me. And I'm like, okay, I'll give you a flat cost for that. And then some people are like, I don't know exactly what I want, but I know I need something. So then I say, well, let's start at your SOPs. So that's assuming the SOPs are written. Okay. So that's where the continuum is. It starts with you getting your SOPs together.
Okay.
If you need help with that, I can do that. Then if you don't know exactly what you need, we'll look at your SOPs. I'll say, okay, where are you spending the most time? Like where could we maybe automate some things for you in your business?
Okay.
Or where are the pieces in your business that are critical that you don't get wrong? Like getting somebody's name in the right spot on a contract. Like those would be great places for automation, right? Or you need some way to sync your team. Like you need a unified system. I can help you with that kind of thing. So that, just depending on where you're at, I can offer a solution for you. So the way you would let me know if you want something like that is you just reach out to me directly right now. My website is not revised well enough right now to go to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And I know I need help with that system, Kyle. And before this call, I kind of thought to myself, like, what are some questions that I could really ask Kyle that make sense? Because I kind of have it all distorted in my head that I know what to do. Mm-hmm. So I think right now, like after we get out the call, I really need to take time and ask myself, okay, how could I explain this to Kyle to help him understand what I need help with? Because I kind of never really addressed these problems. I kind of just took care of them myself. So like when we're blocked, I'll just go in, I'll stop making calls and I'll stop what needs to get blocked. Or when a VA doesn't fill in the information, I figured, oh, well, it's just faster for me to do it really fast and do it on her behalf. And instead of really kind of holding some training or anything in there. So that's what I really want to do, is take the time of like seeing where can I implement this, the best use in the business of where I'm struggling, in other words, if that makes sense.
Yeah, hopefully it does. It does. And something that might be very useful to you if you're not already doing this is maybe start tracking the problems that you're having. Like even in just a Google Doc, or a spreadsheet or something, you say, I ran into this problem. This is the category of problem I ran into. My bad. No. And how many times have I run into this?
Okay.
And the more you run into it, like you'll have a nice running list of all the problems in your business that you need to solve and how many times you've run into that problem. So that way you can then make an informed decision on, well, I really need to address this.
Okay.
But that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is you get your SOPs written out and then you bring me the SOPs.
Okay.
So you can bring me problems or you can bring me SOPs. Okay. And I will help you find the problems and I will help you fix the problems.
Okay.
So I can, because of my technical background, I can look at your SOPs and I can tell you, this is a bottleneck.
Okay.
This can be automated. This thing can be automated. We can do this or that. So that's where my expertise comes into play, is you don't always have to know exactly what it is that you want. You could just say, I need an analysis done on how we can improve things.
Okay. Okay. That sounds good, Cal. I'll do that. And then I know on the Zoom link, do I, for the next, like when I get this set up and we meet again, do I just do like, because I know you have like a consultation fee of like the first hour or something like that. I don't remember what the fee is, but I know there's a fee. Do I just book that with you next time we see each other so I can say, hey, Kyle, here, I have my SOPs, and kind of once I kind of go through the integration a little bit to understand, hey, this is what this is what I think I need, that I'm trying to do in the business, and just present it to you like that. Would that be the best way to kind of provide that to you?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
If you are at that point where you're ready to just go through it, we could do it that way. But if you're not sure, just feel free to ask me. Like, send
Okay.
me a message and say, "Hey, Kyle, like I think I'm at this point. Can you help me figure out like what the next step with you should be?" And
Okay.
I will, based on that, put you in the right direction.
Okay.
Maybe it's another free consultation. Maybe it's a
Okay.
paid one. Whatever it
Okay.
is.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go ahead and do that. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time, and
Yeah, my pleasure, dude.
thanks for taking and going over the 20. The time I appreciate, man.
No problem, dude. I got a special place in my heart for the sub two folks, so
Yeah, I
it's all
appreciate it.
good.
Yeah, we have a lot of great talent in our network,
Yes,
and
sir.
I'm a little bit of an introvert. Well, not a little bit. I'm a big introvert. So it's like just jumping on the call. It means a lot. So I appreciate you, man.
Absolutely, dude. My pleasure. It was great to meet you today.
You too, Kyle, man. You take care, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you, man. Hey,
Thank you.
and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, man. It's going to be a good one.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It is.
You take care now. Thanks again.
All
We'll
right.
talk soon.
Take it easy.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye bye.